and soul of the real estate industry. I'm your host, Khaled Nathan Alim, the real estate boy, and together we're going to be diving deep into stories and experiences of professionals who are dedicated to serving underserved communities in the real estate industry. So, whether you're a real estate professional, a home buyer, or simply interested in the real estate industry, this podcast is for you. So, join us as we dive into the world of real estate with soul. So, today I have my esteemed colleague, Carlo Batts. Carlo is an appraiser, and we're going to talk today about appraisals. This is something this is a hot topic in the news today. Every time you turn around, you got a headline saying appraisals are super low for blacks, but not for whites. So I wanted to get a qualified appraiser on the show so we can talk this out. Welcome to the podcast, Carlo.
Hey, good morning. Carlo Batts, MAI, Principal of Rittenhouse Appraisals. I've been appraising real estate in the Delaware Valley for about 20 years now. I've been running and been the principal of Rittenhouse Appraisals for about 12 years. I'm a designated appraiser, which is the highest designation in the appraisal industry through the Appraisal Institute. Qualified, I'm a certified general licensed appraiser in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Qualified to appraise all types of real estate throughout the Delaware Valley and experienced in appraising multiple property types and multiple valuation scenarios.
Awesome. That's exactly why I brought you on the program. So now, Carlo, a lot of people, when a lot of first-time home buyers, when I'm speaking with them, they get confused between an appraiser,
Mm-hmm.
appraisal, and I'll mess this up 20 billion times during this course, but they'll get confused between an appraisal and an inspection, a home inspection. Why don't you clarify for them the difference between those two?
Okay. An appraisal is a qualified opinion of value for a piece of real estate uh, that is usually ordered by the property owner, the purchaser, or the lender who is about to put a mortgage on a property. The value is based upon the qualities and the potential of the real estate. An inspection is a person who goes out. An inspection and an inspection report is based upon someone that looks through all of the property, the built property, and look at to see the condition and the quality of the improvements to see if there's anything there that could be compromised or just not in the best interest of the purchaser prior to them acquiring the real estate. The inspector does not develop an opinion of value, but rather they develop an opinion on the condition and quality of the components within a property. Now, sometimes the items that are discovered by the inspector could have an effect on the value of the property, depending how significant they are. But they're night and day different.
I appreciate that, man. Now, just from doing my research, you're like a unicorn because there's not a lot of black appraisers out there. I think the last time I looked, it was like 2% or 3%, something minuscule like that. So, can you tell us your background and kind of what led up to you choosing this path of becoming an appraiser?
Okay, well, long and short, I have a degree in real estate, urban planning from Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm probably one of the few people you'll come across that actually have a degree in real estate, and that's across all real estate fields. But more importantly, after college, I was working in neighborhood planning and for HUD, doing block grant administration, and came across the appraisal industry through my work there, and kind of decided to become an appraiser, and took the classes and apprenticed in a bank in Wilmington, Delaware, worked there for about 5, 6 years, and started my journey as an independent appraiser and started my firm. Then I started out at the probably the lowest part of the industry when we were coming out of the 2008 crisis, and kind of took it from there. One of the challenges why there are so few black appraisers there is that it's a long process. It's probably 5 years in total to become a licensed appraiser of quality, a qualified licensed appraiser. And there's also the apprenticeship model is also a challenge as well. So that's really why we don't have as many appraisers as we should.
And let's talk about that. That's a great place to start, is how one actually becomes an appraiser. From what I know, you can definitely correct me on this, is that what they'll do is they'll complete their classroom studies. And then once a person completes their classroom studies, as you mentioned, now there's sort of an apprenticeship that they have to do where they have to get so many hours in order to be licensed as an appraiser. Is that correct? And is there any other steps besides
Yeah,
that?
you have to get. I think it's right now for a residential license is 1,500, and for a commercial license, certified general is 2,500 or 3,000. That's the what you have to do, and on top of take about I think it's 10 classes to get to the licensing part. Some of this is a little bit. I need to review it again because it's been some years and the laws have changed, and they're doing more now to try to increase the crop of appraisers and appraisers of color in the industry. However, it's going to take some time for us to really work and get enough appraisers in the pipeline. Another one of the challenges is that um, it's a long process, and also the fee model for appraisals has changed significantly. And you're really during the apprenticeship process, you're really, got to take it on the chin as far as income, because when you're in, because you have to start out at the bottom and work your way to the top. But the benefits and the
Yeah,
rewards are at the back end.
yeah. Some of the things that I read that they were going to start maybe advertising at HBCUs as far as having an appraiser as a career path. I know it when I mean, I graduated college in 2000. This is 23 years ago. But I know that if somebody would have approached me about being an appraiser, I would have loved it. So I think exposure is one of the keys to increasing minorities in this field, but also, like you said, the bottleneck of having to go through an apprentice program. Let me ask you about that program. If you're in all case, if you're a mentor and it's a mentor mentee type of relationship, do you pick who you mentee and who you don't mentee? Like, is it
Do it's
arbitrary like that?
It is. It's a selection process. I choose who I want to train and who's qualified and who I feel like is a good fit for me to train. To be honest, I've
Uh-huh.
interviewed a lot of people to be trainees under me. Some of them I've turned away because you have to be committed, and I just this is not a fly by night process, and I'm trying to develop someone of a quality appraisals, quality appraiser. Now, the state and nationally, they have just now passed a law called PIREA, which is going to be an apprenticeship training program that's going to be more virtually. Uh, it's going to allow trainees to get hours virtually. They're still going to have to do some time one on one, but it'll help them get their hours to become our appraiser. So it's something that they're implementing to speed up the process. But that's just in its infancy, and it's just now getting passed. Everything has to be passed state by state across the country.
See how that could foster maybe a little boys club, because if I can I can turn down this person or pick this person, it's like, okay, it kind of leaves the room for people to kind of pick, like, okay, this person, I'm not vibing with this person. This person isn't from my culture. So therefore, I'm not going to mentor this person. But my cousin or my uncle or my nephew, I should say, who's trying to get into the business, yeah, I'll take more time with him because there's a connection. Is that something that you've seen or have heard in the business?
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue in itself is that the appraisal industry in itself kind of started out as a mom and pop home business, and the appraiser, would pass it down to their son or family member and train them to become an appraiser and hand it down. And this was up when it kind of first came in. Appraisal business came in. It started out as part of a broker, a service of real estate brokers, and then it kind of evolved off into a service into itself. But what has happened, and the real estate industry, though a lot of people see it as no real estate for a long time, and you see houses and buildings built, the truth about real estate is that it's really an industry that's just now coming out of its infancy, and it really turned into an asset class and an investment class uh, in the late '80s, early '90s, after the S&L crisis. So what happens is you have an apprenticeship model that's based upon the old real estate world prior to real estate becoming an investment class. And while other parts of the industry has evolved into becoming a more of an institutional asset investment, such as your broker industry and your finance industry and your property management industry, the appraisal industry is still operates as it was prior to. So overall, the appraisal industry has not changed itself to meet the new real estate world that has kind of happened since the early '90s after the S&L crisis, and real estate becoming an investment class or investment of choice by the greater population. So from a
Well, that's
diversity
very
aspect,
insightful. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go
so
ahead.
from a diversity aspect, it creates a bigger problem, because the demand has increased sharply for the need for appraisal work and the need to do these far as these investments and far as the way people use their real estate as part of their retirement plan, as part of their sending their kids to school. But it hasn't changed to allow more diversity and overall just increase the pipeline of appraisers to supply the increased demand.
Right now, if a appraiser works 40 hours a week per se, okay,
Right.
how
No
much would you
appraiser.
think that they would stand to make? Say it again.
First, no appraiser works 40 hours a week. They work, just by being in this industry, you accept that you're going to
Uh,
work 60, 70 hours. And this is really not a industry where you really cut off, because you got your time, you're doing the physical reports and inspections and stuff, the physical work. But if you're a true appraiser, you're thinking about properties all night and all night about how to attack them and how to value them. It's just like it becomes your life. Either you love what you do and you just in it, like I love what I do and I'm in it. So it's no checkout time. But let's say for a typical residential appraiser out there that has their license and doing quality work and serving the Delaware Valley or the city of Philadelphia, I mean, a buck 25, 125,000 to 150,000 a year revenue, if they position themselves right, is reasonable. Um, Definitely 75K plus is a reasonable area to be at for a residential appraiser. For a commercial appraiser that's doing more complex properties throughout the Delaware Valley or throughout just more complex properties, that number is higher. Could be higher than that. Um, but
so
it's all about how you apply yourself and how you look at fit into the industry.
all about position, all about positioning. So let's because I want to talk about the issues now, but I think in order to talk about the issues now, you have to talk about in the past. So,
Okay.
as you were saying, before the Dodd-Frank Act happened or the S&L crisis in
Right.
2008, what would happen is that the lender,
Right.
I'm a real estate agent,
Right.
so I have a first-time home buyer. Have
Right.
first-time home buyer, I get them pre-approved. They get pre-approved for a lender. So,
Right.
what would happen before the Dodd-Frank Act is that the lender would just call you up. Hey, Carlo, I got this house at 123 Main Street. I need an appraisal. And you would just go and you would, the contract would be with the lender and you would go write the appraisal and then you would come back and everything would be done. Now,
Right.
because of that, I guess somebody can kind of see. how it's in the appraiser's best interest to get that number as close as they can to the listing price, because they want that bank to keep on calling them. Because, and I'm looking at it now, but it looks like there was no measures in place as far as to police people cherry picking this particular appraiser, because he always gives us our numbers. So after 2008, what happened is that they put a middleman in there. So they put a
Right.
middleman in there. It's the AMC, right?
Yes.
Right, the AMC, and they act as a middleman. So now the lender doesn't go straight to the appraiser. He has to put his order in with the AMC, and then the AMC takes that order and goes out to the number of appraisers that signed up with them, and basically takes the lowest bid. Would that be correct?
That is correct. And let me clean up a little bit, about what's going on here. One, prior to, you got the S&L crisis of the late 80s, which real estate came in more in demand after that. Then we fast forward, real estate became this investment asset. It mushroomed on up until 2008, roughly, to the financial crisis. Out of the financial crisis came the Dodd-Frank, which included appraisal management companies being like a repository that would actually order the appraisals for the bank to give a separation between the lender and or the loan officer and the appraiser. So there wouldn't be any convoluted things going on. Overall, when though your client, the home buyer, pays for the appraisal, our client under that scenario is actually the bank. It's not your property owner. And that becomes a huge issue for a couple of reasons that we'll get into a little bit later, and a couple other where this is going. But these third party appraisal management companies, when your client paid for that appraisal, let's say through Bank USA or whatever, to get their mortgage, they assume that a qualified individual that's knowledgeable about their neighborhood is coming to appraise their property. And regardless of this AMC or whoever they use to do the ordering, they assume that's what's going to happen. However, that's not the case. The appraisal management company, a lot of these appraisal management companies are behooved to find the lowest fee appraiser that can get the job done that's on their panel. And a lot of these appraisal management companies are not local in nature. They're actually, could be across the country, and they're just trying to find somebody to get the deal done so they can send it to the lender and get paid and get this process done. The other problem with that is that they're putting a lot of pressure on appraisers. They want these things back in 3 days, and they've cut the fee since the inclusion of the AMC. So we have a rush and get it done
Okay, so
and a lower. Yeah.
right. All right, so let's unpack that for 1 second. So what you're saying is, for okay, we're in Philadelphia County.
Right.
So they may call somebody, what, from maybe like Chester County, or maybe out in like Lancaster, maybe, to come over.
I've
Maybe
seen
not that far.
me personally, it's all about your market expertise and where you are comfortable
Right.
and qualified to appraise it. Um, I Your footprint of where you're qualified to appraise that changes based upon your experiences. There are guys that have essentially never set foot in Philadelphia County or some neighborhoods of Philadelphia County that's coming from counties away to appraise real estate that they have no idea what's going on. And I've seen some challenges there as far as the values, especially when you get into Philly neighborhoods where you got to understand the neighborhood fabric in itself just to understand what's going on to get to the value. And that's across all neighborhoods. I mean, we got neighborhoods right in Rittenhouse Square that if you didn't know, you would be like, what's this? It's because the way the row houses are and the way, the bricks are, it's just a different fabric. That's just how it is. But you add on top of that some other layers, and then a socioeconomic layer, you could potentially end up getting in trouble.
So would it be like, for example, if I'm coming from Hershey County, if I'm coming from like Hershey, Pennsylvania, just for to say, I don't know what county
Yeah, I
Hershey
don't know
County
somebody's
is.
coming that
Coming
far,
from
but I know
Dauphin
some guy.
County.
Yes.
So if you coming from, like, for example, if I'm coming from Dauphin County, if anybody has been to Harrisburg or out that way, you know there's a bunch of detached homes. So if I'm looking
Right.
at those homes and then I'm asked to come 2 hours into Philly, I guess what you're saying is my perception might be that these townhomes really aren't that expensive because I'm only used to these big single detached homes. Is that what you're saying as far as some of the bias, or is that off a little bit?
That's off a little bit. Number one, it's we're may
Okay.
not be as valuable, but really it's about how do I attack the problem of value and how do I understand what's going on here to make sure I understand this market to do the value of the property. But that's one of the challenges that appraiser coming from so far out has to deal with. They have to figure out, they have to spend time researching the market and understanding the market dynamics and the local dynamics that goes into that particular neighborhood, as well as what's going on from market demand, transactions, and so forth. But to the appraiser's problem is that he's getting a low fee. He has to go all around chasing fees. And then on the other side of that, they're giving him, he's pressured on time. So he doesn't have the time to dig into that appraisal at to do the quality job that they're demanding of him as well and holding his feet to it. So what I'm
So
trying to convey here,
give us an example.
let's say, so a typical appraiser, it used to be prior to Dodd-Frank, they were getting 650 for an appraisal. Now, with Dodd-Frank enacted, the typical appraiser is getting 325. Some of them are taking 250 for a residential appraisal. So they've seen their money. What happens when Dodd-Frank was enacted? You're seeing a 50% cut in your sales or your revenue, and still have to, and now you got to work double as much to make that, what we say is 75 to 125 a year. You just now doubled your workload just to get to back to even to doing what you were doing before. So on top of that, they doubled your workload and increased the time, shortened the time when you have to turn around. So you're under a significant amount of pressure to deliver these reports. And if you can't deliver it, then we're not sending you no more jobs. So the AMC is this thing where they're taking half the money, they're pressuring the appraiser. And if you don't conform to what they're doing, then to what they're putting on you, then you're not going to get any work anyway. So that 325 you're getting is going down to zero. So that's the type of pressure that they're on. Now you added that we've cut the industry down so much, and we've done that, that the appraisers are going to have to travel far to go get an appraisal done. They got to take jobs in areas that they wouldn't normally take jobs or travel because they got to make this money up too to stay solvent. So that's the challenge of the appraiser in general. That's what's going on in the greater market. So now we add a racial aspect on top of that, where there potentially is an opportunity where people can't look at the appraiser can't look at what's going on, like dig in deep as they need to understand the market. They can miss value. Now, overall, I say all this because overall, I don't want to say that to convey something that there is a rampant, like the Klan is out there doing appraisals for a lot of these AMCs or something like that. But now, so that's what's happening. I think that's where a lot of the problems are coming from. Now, is there racial issues happening in the appraisal industry? Absolutely. But I don't think they're as widespread as much as those problems I just discussed and the ramifications of those issues. And that's what's creating a lot of the problems.
Okay, so I'm going to take it a little bit deeper here. Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, please give me an example of this, as far as how would it make sense that if an appraiser, because this is the narrative that they're painting, and with me being in the industry and being a real estate agent, sometimes I think this stuff is just clickbait sometimes. But I
Uh-huh.
want to know from an appraiser, how would it be that based on an appraiser going out to a home, it's a black home,
Right.
so there's black pictures on there, it
Right.
gets one number,
Right.
but then they call another appraiser out to there and
Right.
they have their white neighbor
Right.
home sit for them.
Right.
And now the home is worth $150,000 more. How exactly would that take place? Same home, same
Okay.
area.
All right. So again, I don't want to say that there is not something racial going on within the industry in itself. Now, when you under that scenario,
Mhm.
what you presented, you need to know one, the qualifications of appraiser one that came in to do that appraisal and what he looked at as far as the value and what comps did he use and did he select. Two, you need to look at the qualifications and the skillfulness of appraiser two and how he picked his comps and what it's based on. Now, just because the value is different or lower doesn't mean it's the wrong value. It's just not the value that you wanted to get the deal done, you know. But there is also, I can't say that there's not issues and circumstances where I've seen appraisals myself where the appraiser just got it wrong and he did stuff that was totally wrong. And going back and seeing the two appraisers come back and the guy got the value right. I mean, this one lady's house was right across from a park and the guy just totally selected comps that was totally off. So I can't say it doesn't happen, but you know, I don't know what, I can't speak to the why it was there or the why it happened like that because
Mhm.
I don't know that guy. I don't know. I would like to believe that it was because of the pressure on him, or a lot of it is because of the pressure on him, and not just because he wanted to see this person get a lower value. Because at the end of the day, if you do appraisal
What
like
would
that,
you do if you were selling your home? If you were selling your home,
oh,
oh, go ahead.
I'm not only am I an appraiser, but I'm also a victim of appraiser bias as well in my life. So I get it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
What would you do if you're
I
selling
got
your
the, I got
home? If you're selling your home, what would you do as far as, would you take all the pictures down and have one of your white buddies host, or would you just
I
let it
don't.
roll?
I would like to think that our industry is not like that because I have
Okay.
the appraisers that I know. Now, I'm a qualified
Okay.
designated appraiser, and I hang around other qualified designated appraisers that do residential and commercial real estate. I don't believe that any of them are doing this. What I think we have is that there are guys out there that have barely gotten their license and received their classes through a low quality and don't know how to attack the problem. And the issues with value is really based upon their skillfulness and understanding how to do the research to arrive at a value. Um, so from a property, at the end of the day, it's about getting deals done and making sure that the deals happen. I would say the main thing a property owner can do is make sure your house is sale ready. And that's making sure that you remove you remove the clutter from your home. You make sure that the appraiser can see everything clearly. That you may have to, get a storage, take some stuff to storage or whatever. But make sure that your house you can see everything and everything's presentable and you've cured items of deferred maintenance as much as you can because those are the items that should affect value, not your race, you know. But dealing with the racial thing, I can't say what to do because it's, you know, I can't give you something to handle that. But I would say the best thing that an agent could do or someone that's representing somebody in the appraisal process is to make sure that you're allowing a qualified appraiser that's knowledgeable about your market area into your property in the first place. And that you need to make sure that the licensed appraiser that you contracted with or the bank contracted with is showing up at your property to do the appraisal inspection. And if an agent does that, or a property owner just does that, I think that will alleviate a lot of the problems that we're seeing.
So what you're saying is that sometimes these appraisers are sending out their junior agents or their mentee, or
Well,
maybe they're just sending somebody out to take pictures.
under state law, you can send out your trainee after they have enough hours of apprenticeship. They can go out on their own. Okay, that's fine. But because the way what we call appraisal mills, that you have sometimes you'll have appraisers out there that's collecting all these $350 or cheap appraisal reports that they can't service on their own anyway because of the volume they have to do to stay solvent. So they'll collect them all and then pay a guy $20 a property to go do the inspection, pictures, and measurements. And that guy's not licensed. That guy, we don't know the experience of that guy. We don't know how well he knows the neighborhood, or the dynamics of the market area. How is he describing this market area back to the appraiser? And when the AMC in that contract they do between the appraiser and the AMC, it states that most of the contracts generally state that the licensed appraiser needs to inspect the property.
Now,
And
can the
that's
realtor ask the AMC? Can the realtor ask the AMC if that agent beforehand? Can he ask
uh,
the AMC as far as if that appraiser has experience, for example, in the Philadelphia area?
sure. I say I would interview any appraiser before they enter, before I do. Just as I'm hired, I'm interviewed all the time by clients prior to assigning us taking an order on. I mean, it's just they want to know my
Private
experience.
sale? Is that a private sale?
Private sales, I'm interviewed all the time. I'm interviewed by guys that's doing mortgage transactions too. They want to know like how many times, like what is my experience in this property? What's my experience in this property type? How long have I been appraising? What do I know about the neighborhood? I talk to them about it, and usually the way it happens is that I give them some insight about their neighborhood or market area and what's going on there and the transactions that have occurred. Then they know and feel comfortable allowing me to appraise their property. But if an appraiser can't communicate on that level of what's going on there, knowing the dynamics of the neighborhood or the market area, then quite possibly he may not be the appraiser that should be there. And I want to reiterate one thing: value can be higher and lower than where a contract is. That's sometimes the value just ain't there. You know,
Now, who's contacting you? Is it the seller's agent or the buyer? Who's interviewing you when you're interviewed during a normal transaction? Seller's agent
it's
or the
either.
buyer's agent?
Oh, well, this we're talking about years ago. Um, I'll give you an example of what happened. This happened back when I was first started appraising on my own when I was doing a lot of residential real estate appraisals. Now, my team does the residential work for us, and then I have a couple of other commercial guys that does my commercial work. But um, I called this old guy up. It was like one of my first jobs in Philadelphia. This was like 2010, 2008, 9.
Mhm.
He said, me and him, he started asking me questions. And I was like, yeah, I know that neighborhood. It was over in some area like East Oak Lane. And we started talking and like, he asked, well, how well do you know this neighborhood? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a licensed appraiser in Philadelphia. I know this neighborhood well. Somehow we got into a back and forth. And I was like, well, the bank contacted me, whatever, I need to get access to the property. It was a pretty confrontational thing. But at the end of the day, he said, yeah, you're not going to appraise my property. And I was like, huh. And he called the bank and canceled and got another appraiser. And I thought back then at the time, because I was fresh at this, I was like, no, he didn't do the wrong thing. He did the right thing because he's responsible for representing his buyer or seller to get this transaction done. And he got to make sure that the right person is on the job throughout the whole process. you know. And since that time, I've always respected what he did more and more because I see that that's that was a older agent. This guy had to be in his 70s or 80s, and but he knew what to do to make sure his client he got his sale done because he doesn't get paid until the transaction closes. So he's putting to make sure the right people are on the job. And the reason why agents don't get paid until the transaction closes is because they're paid for running a quality process from beginning to end. And so if the
Mhm.
agents are quarterbacking that process right, they're going to ensure that the right people are showing up throughout, not just someone, not just any inspector. They're going to make sure the right inspector comes. They make sure that the right appraiser comes too. It's the whole thing. You were hired because you're the right guy for the job to get the deal done.
Right, right. And that's crazy because in most tranches, the inspector is almost like Batman. Like you really don't see them, and they just come in. They're like in and out, and it's really hard to get in contact with them. Now, what you're telling me, I mean, is something new because you never hear that, okay, you can interview the inspector to make sure it's almost put in a
Appraiser,
way like
appraiser,
they're
appraiser,
issued to you. Sorry,
appraiser,
appraiser, right, appraiser,
appraiser.
right. It's
But yeah.
always
Let me be
go ahead.
clear to what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that all these problems that we're hearing all these real estate agents talk about and all these issues that's coming up, I say 95%, 90 to 95% of these issues will dissolve if they just stepped up and start really doing their job. They've become accustomed to, putting stuff out there, putting it on MLS, they're getting a call, and, you know, this next thing you know, you got a bunch of showings, then you're getting the contract in, and then the appraiser calls, you give him the lockbox, and he goes out, do his thing. And, you need to not only do you need to interview the appraiser, you need to be there, give him a walkthrough, let him know how you develop the opinion of pricing and everything right there, and let him know that here's what we're dealing with. That's running a qualified process from beginning to end.
I agree with you with most of that. I guess the only caveat that I would put to that, of course, what you learn in real estate school, you don't use out in the field for the most part. But during the transaction, the culture, I'll say it like that, the culture is that you really can't be appraiser. And now from this interview, I know that that's totally wrong. And when I first started, I used to go out and meet the appraiser and walk him through and give him comps, everything that you're saying. Because I'll be totally honest, even during these, I've been in the industry since 2017, and I've had comps come in lower, maybe 7%, 8% of the time. Usually they're at or above. But it was never told to me as far as the interviewing part. It's always made it look, or the industry has made it look as though you take this appraiser and that's it. And you can't tell the AMC, hey, I don't want this person. I want another person, or I don't want this appraiser. I want another appraiser. But that's who you would go to, right? Or would you go to the bank as far as appraiser?
You'll go to the AMC or the mortgage company and tell them that you reviewed the appraiser, you interviewed the appraiser, and I think he's a nice guy, but his qualifications or his experience didn't seem that. Can you give me some other appraisers to pick from? But what I was saying to you is that yes, the culture of real estate, the agent process of real estate sales and getting deals done has evolved into an automated culture of just, to me, from the outside, I'm not an agent, not licensed as an agent, but it seems that it has evolved into an automated process of list a property, give out the lockbox, get a contract, give out the lockbox to the appraiser and the inspectors and whoever else needs access, and meet at the closing table and then take selfies and TikToks and post that you got a deal done. And That's not doing your job. Your job is get a listing. You work that listing. You get paid at the end for a reason. The reason why they set up that you get paid at the end is because you're not done your job until that deal closes successfully, and you got to manage that process from beginning to end, and you got to be involved in it and work that process. Not just give out the lock boxes for them to come do it and let it happen on autopilot. It's the truth. I mean, from the outside in, and what the way the angle I'm coming in and what I'm hearing about what's going on a lot is because is really a lot of that would be alleviated if they were just in it hammering out, making sure they knock the stuff out the park.
The only reason I'm smiling is from the outside looking in. From the inside looking out, it's definitely not like that. Um, Trust me, and I'm just going to say this for my agent brothers and sisters, man. They earn every dime of that commission at the end, and then that doesn't take into account, like you said, they only get paid at the end, so that doesn't account for all of the people that dropped off, where you got them to the end of the process, or you drove them around
Sure.
for 6 months and they still didn't buy. So there's a lot that
I get,
goes
I
up
get, I get, I get that. Let
at
me
the
let me let
end.
me
Those
let me do a little
those
cleanup.
TikTok
You're
dances.
qualified.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Those TikTok dances and the popping bottles, non-alcoholic champagne at the end. That's definitely for all the tears and the getting beat up uh, because of the mortgage process and not your process. You know what I mean? So that's neither here nor there, man.
Let me let me
Before
let
the
me let me
time runs
clarify.
out, though.
Let me clarify
Go
one
ahead.
thing real quick. I'm on your show because I see you as a qualified, experienced, skillful agent and skillful in the process. I'm not speaking of to you as a not. I know what you do, so it's not. I wasn't attacking you, and I know other qualified agents out there that manage a good process. But as a whole, and when we look at what's going on out there and these challenges, a lot of that is where is that people are not running their process to get the deals from the start to the finish line, and there's more work to be done.
There's some bad agents out there.
Yeah. Or it's just more work to be done than just giving the appraiser the lockbox. No, you need to meet the guy because you get an appraiser the lockbox, somebody else shows up that's not the licensed appraiser, and he just does whatever. And then so you ask me how these problems happen, how we get there is that you need to be making sure you need to meet them there and say, let me see your license. Let me see your ID. Make sure you're the person that we contacted with to get this deal done, because that's the type of work that has to happen to ensure that this deal is going to move slowly. It may be more work than you're accustomed to, but it's what's going to have to happen to get the deal done because of all these things that's packaged now into the industry
Question,
with
because
these. So I'm not down talking agents. It's
right,
just
right. Question,
yeah,
and
you
no,
good.
no worries, no worries. Um, I always wonder this. When you do meet an appraiser at the property and you give them your comps, how much influence do you think that has on the comps that they pull? Because part of me would think that appraiser would be like, well, I'm a registered appraisal. Like, this is what I do. So I know the comps. I know comps better than you, and you're giving me your comps. How much influence do you think that has?
I've had a lot of times brokers and agents have provided comps with us to us. And sometimes I even ask them to send me your comps that you selected to develop your pricing,
Mm.
so I can just see what your thinking is in your pricing model to get to where you are. If it's comps that meet the criteria and is really relevant, then a lot of times they'll end up in the appraisal report themselves. So I think that is something that's
Oh, nice.
definitely should be done. And like when you're developing your pricing, go ahead and set your comps aside and like even take some notes to why you used it. You know, I think that's helpful. You know, I think that's a good thing to support the appraiser, because there are things out there, transactions, Bright MLS and the MLS. You can search a couple different ways, and probably by the fourth or fifth time, you could find a new comp that you didn't see all the other ways you searched. And so it's you should do that.
What about an email? What if I emailed the comps? Would that be okay too, or you'd be like, I'm not.
Sure, but that's also that's so not only are you meeting the appraiser there for something, you're actually showing that you are an agent, a skillful agent, and you have the here's how we do it, here's how I do it, here's the comps. You talking to them about the property and how you developed it, developing rapport and relationships with them, not just seeing it as a person that's just coming from wherever. And because
Gotcha.
there's such a finite appraisers in Philadelphia region, um, there's
Mhm.
the qualified appraisers that you're going to meet that are in Philly. You're going to see them a lot, and then you're going to build a reputation between one another, and so they know if something is coming in low, that they're going to discuss it with you even more, and then call you and say, "Hey, I'm having some challenges here. Like, kind of give me some insight as to how you price this out, because maybe it's something I'm missing."
Yeah, relationships. All right, I'm going to close it with this question. Okay. Um,
Okay.
how much discrepancy does an appraiser have? If you could put a percentage on it, how much personal or subjective discrepancy does an appraiser have? Meaning that if they're doing an appraisal for a house, and the house, for example, in this example is 200,000, and they get like from their comps, they're getting 295. So they're only $5,000 off, or maybe they're $1,000 off. That's what I'm trying to kind of gather. How much discrepancy do they have as far as to
Okay.
close the gap in between their opinion and what the price is?
All right. Let me clean up a couple things real quick. One, we don't appraise to a contract. We appraise the value of the property,
Hmm.
which the contract may
Gotcha.
or may not be equivalent to that value. So that's one point of clarity. The value is the value. The contract is something that was negotiated between two people. Um, but if you generally get an appraisal in and it's $5,000 short from contract, that tells me generally from my experience, um, that probably it was probably more like 20 grand off, and he's done everything he could do to get that value as close as he can to the contract, but couldn't push it anymore. And so then you may even have some comps that are a little questionable, but he threw them in there just trying to get it up. And the way the rules are, there is some leeway, and then there's not some leeway when they do this stuff. But sometimes they're doing what they could do to get it done, or they can go further out, if they have justification, or they can go further back in time. And I think that one of the things that could assist in pricing a property is also for an agent to understand the guidelines of mortgage appraisal and what their guidelines is for FHA, so you'll know what the comp restrictions are. Because
All right, man.
I
That's a
just can't
wrap.
neighborhood over and get a
What?
because you think your value is 500,000 and the values in your neighborhood is 300,000. I just can't go over to the other neighborhood and get a $500,000 comp when there's sales to support $300,000 in that neighborhood.
Okay. Because I had a situation like that one time. I'll tell you this real fast. I had a triplex, and the triplex was
Mm-hmm.
in Alany, and
Mm-hmm.
the number was higher than the comps, or the number was a lot higher than the comps in the area. So what the appraiser said is that he went out of area in order to get the comps because he had been working with that lender for like 20 years. But this is what he said that he had to do in order to get the comps for that triplex, which I always thought was kind of, you know what I mean? Almost felt like if the relationship wasn't there, then we wouldn't have gotten the comps. But because he had been working with that lender for 20 years, according to him, he was able to breach the guidelines and go outside the area and get the comps.
Well, I'm gonna give you a couple points. One, you got private money and you got public money. Private money, they can do. It's just an investor that's mortgaging real estate. They set their own standards because it's their money. Public money, banks, mortgage companies, and stuff, they have to adhere to certain guidelines and stipulations. But also, you're saying one thing that I do want to convey here is that a single family home, that's a 1 unit property. A triplex is actually a 3 unit property. So if you got $100,000 single family home, that's $100,000 unit. So if you got a triplex and you're selling it for $300,000, or it's sold for the value of $300,000, that's $100,000 per unit. Multifamily real estate sales based upon the value of the income stream per unit, not and can't be analyzed like a single family home. So that the comparable selection will have to be different, or you got to go further out to find those comps.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, guys, that's a wrap, man. Carlo, let them know where they can find you at, bro.
www.rhappraisals.com, Rittenhouse Appraisals. You can find me on LinkedIn, everywhere. Usually, we serve the Delaware Valley. We do all types of real estate, commercial, multifamily, development, industrial, residential. We cover the gamut of experienced in the Philadelphia market.
Gotcha. And for all my viewers, stop calling me and asking me for a minority appraiser. Okay. Carlos Ones will definitely contact him. All of his information will be in the description. So if you need an appraiser for your investment property, or you're looking to sell your home, but you want to know what that value is before putting it on a market, give Carlo and his team a call, man. This is Colin Nathan Alim, the real estate boy. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate.